Hello, BookTube. Well, it's April Adventures, I know, but we've only got a week of April left, and then it's May. So this coming week, we're going to be bombarded here on BookTube, and bombarded in the best possible sense of the word, with the kind of video that I really like, where people do their TBRs for the upcoming month. They decide I'm reading this or I'm planning on this big tome or whatnot, and also people contour a lot of their TBRs for BookTube events. There's Horror Mayhem in June, for instance. I think maybe Midrash might be kicking off in June as well, and others that I don't know about. Uh, these kinds of TBR videos are harder for me to do, not only because I uh, follow Whim a lot more than you might think from watching this channel. I do. I follow Whim a lot more than you might think. I do a lot of reading. I do a lot of reading. Every day, every week, every month. I do a lot of it. Those of you who have to carve out time for reading every day, you really busy people who have children or jobs or both, you have my admiration. I'm not like that. It's all I do. So I read a lot, and therefore I have the freedom to let a lot of that be by whim. Just the other day on this channel, I didn't do it on this channel, but I took my little dog out for a walk on a relatively not cold day. And by the time we got back, I had an armload of books that I just accumulated on the walk without even trying, without paying a penny, without even looking for books. So, and when something like that happens, or I go to a charity shop or my used bookstore, I let that whim very much govern me. There are a couple of books from that haul that I got just walking out and about that I have read already, and I will read the others. And also the same thing with what comes in the mail. If I get an interesting looking book in the mail, well, of course, obviously, I might not have known that it was coming, but I'm going to put it on the hopper to read right away or to read soon. And so on one sense, my TBR for any upcoming month like this is a May TBR, one of many that I could do. On one sense, my TBR for any coming month will be unpredictable. I have all the time in the world for reading. So I'm perfectly happy to follow whims, to let a book in the mail, a book on the sidewalk, a book mentioned on YouTube, to let anything like that nudge me towards reading. And I can't, of course, do a TBR of that sort of stuff. But there's another element of my reading that is much more predictable that I can do a TBR for, and that is new releases. I mostly read new releases in the American book market in the 15 or 16 genres that interest me. And I break that down by month. I try not to read ahead. So I thought we'd go over some May releases that I am going to read. I don't think there are any on this list that I've already read, but I will see. These are just a handful of May releases that I am going to read. Starting with Marco Santagata, whose book on Dante was one of the very first books I ever talked about on this channel. And he has a new book coming out, translated by Emmeline Eisenach, a biography of Boccaccio. It's a source of joy to me. There's a lot of material out there to write a biography of Boccaccio, and I never looked at this thing when it was out originally in Italian. So I will be encountering it in translation, and I will be very curious to know what this author does with all those sources. I know those sources well, and I have read everything by Boccaccio many, many times. So I'll be very interested to see, in many ways more interested to see what he does in this book than I was with his Dante book. Because I know a lot about Dante's life, but there are elements of Dante's poetry that elude me. They elude most people who write about Dante. They add an element of kind of a TARDIS-like element of infinity to any study of Dante. That's not true for Boccaccio. So here I will not be wondering, well, maybe you're seeing something that I'm not. Here I'll just be wondering, maybe I've read stuff that you haven't read. We'll see. I'm very interested to see how this will be. I don't think it's a big thing. And then we have the new book by Allison Weir. I'm ashamed to say I have not read this yet. I should. But this is her new book, The Cardinal, which is about Cardinal Wolsey. It's about the cardinal who, a butcher's son and looks it. He came from humble beginnings, rose to prominence under Henry VII, teaching him the art of statecraft, making uncanny international decisions, uncannily good, very smart international decisions, and naturally was this gigantic red presence in the upbringing of the young Prince Henry. Not only when Henry thought that he might go into the church himself, his brother Arthur was alive, his brother was the heir, but also afterwards, when Arthur died and Henry became heir and then king. Wolsey was there the whole time, teaching him about Europe, teaching him about England's relationship with Europe, changing that relationship, changing Henry. And I'm curious to know what kind of a job Allison Weir will do here. I don't even know if this is narrated from Wolsey's point of view. Wolsey has been the subject of probably 4 really good biographies, 1 great biography, and 1 great novel. But I have no idea what kind of a job this would be. Allison Weir's fiction tends not to wow me. We'll see. Then we have something by Bailey Hanna. I don't think I know this author. This is a Wells Ranch romance called Change of Heart. I'm assuming that the spelling there means that Hart is our main character. And this is a contemporary romance novel. It's very much along the lines of... I maintain that this particular cover design for contemporary romance has flourished solely because of e-readers and the privacy that they afford. I wonder how many 40-year-old mother of 3 PTA members who are waiting in the station wagon for their kids to get out of soccer practice would haul this out and read it if it were a print and paper book that was visible to other people. I don't know, one way or another. I wish there was a study on that. I would love to study that, how e-reading has changed our reading. I would love to study that. But this is a contemporary romance, probably a contemporary Western romance. I'm always up for those. And it's a May release, so I'll give it a try. Then we have Peter Conrad. This has already been written up in the critical journals quite a bit. I read all those write-ups. I am not one of those critics who will not read a word about a book that I think I might review. No one's review of a book that I'm about to review myself is going to dislodge my opinions. I'm not that weak in my opinions. I don't hold them that lightly. So I read everything ahead of time. And if a review of something that I read before I read it myself is really good, really hits at the heart of something, I go on to read the book and it turns out, that person was spot on the money, I'll just quote them. I'll just mention them in my own review. I'm still going to have things to say. And this is Peter Conrad's new book, Dickens The Enchanter, a book about Charles Dickens. Probably a kind of biography, but I imagine this will be more a writer biography, which for Dickens you might say is the same thing, but there were a lot of domestic turmoils that I think will probably get a back seat in this book. We'll see how good it is. I mean, I'm always up to read about Dickens. As you could tell, if you came here to Hyde Cottage, I've said over all the years that we've been talking about books, I've said that Dickens novels really don't do much for me. They just haven't. Like right now on this channel, I am doing a chapter by chapter read aloud. I'm reading you Mr. Scarborough's Family by Anthony Trollope. And honestly, I think if I did a read aloud of any equivalent novel of Charles Dickens, I wouldn't be having nearly as much fun, and I don't think you would be either. I don't think I'm wrong that Trollope is better than this guy. But I don't have the well-thumbed, well-stickered copies of Dickens on my shelf, but I do have lots of studies of Dickens, and this is the latest one. So I'll give it a try, and we'll see. Oh, all right, I'm wrong. I originally said that I thought that I hadn't read any of the books on this list. But I have read at least this one. This is by Janet Wortman, BookTube's own Janet Wortman. This is her forthcoming book, Nothing Proved. You can see there is young Elizabeth Tudor, basically in captivity. You can see there, much suspected, nothing proved. That is a famous inscription that we think Elizabeth did about herself at a time when the court suspicion was turning towards her as the eye of a whole bunch of conspiracies. All of which here Janet and I, I'm sure, will disagree, but all of which Elizabeth was certainly involved in. There was never any such thing as an innocent Tudor. But of course, if you're going to make her the heroine of historical fiction, you're going to make her innocent, and this is wonderful. You already know, if you watch this channel, that I'm a huge fan of Janet Wortman's historical novels. Her trilogy about the Seymour family is terrific. This is even better. I think probably because it has a much stronger lead. than anyone you're going to find in the weeds of the Seymour family. I when this comes out, I strongly recommend it. I do. I strongly recommend it. And I don't remember the exact publication date for this book, but I'm hoping that Janet Wortman will will be up for a Zoom chat with me around the publication date of this book, so you can all put it on your list. Okay, then we have this is Talk of the Devil, and it's a new collection of the writings of Ian Fleming. But crucially, this is not the Bond novels. This is not a collection of writings in that way. This is a collection of a lot of other stuff that Fleming wrote. His occasional prose, basically. Prefaces, essays, addresses, speeches, all that sort of thing, some of which are really, really good. I don't think that the collected writings of Ian Fleming have ever been done before. I'm pretty sure, I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that no one's ever done a book like this for him. So I will be interested in reading. There'll be lots of pieces in here that I haven't read, but I'm hoping that this has a nice detailed introduction about how this book came to be. That's fascinating to me in its own right. Ian Fleming, I don't think, I'm not as big a fan of him as there exists in the world. There are plenty of bigger Ian Fleming fans who exist, but he was a smart guy, and did a fair amount of reading and a fair amount of writing. I do not subscribe to the mythology connected with Ian Fleming that is connected to so many other people, from Hemingway to Christopher Hitchens, that alcohol helped his production. It did not. It never does. So who knows what he would have been able to do. But then we have something translated from the Turkish by Nicholas Glastonbury. Something for the gays. You got to have something for the gays. This is Summerhouse by, you God help us, you get Karamet. You go help us. I don't know anything about this except that it's been liberally, encouragingly pushed by its publicist. So, you know, I know that it's an upcoming contemporary novel. I think it's for the gays. I'm going to read it anyway. Contrary to popular impression, I read a huge amount of fiction, of contemporary fiction, a huge amount of it. I barely write about it at all. I barely talk about it at all, but I read a huge amount of it. And we'll see. I don't have the reason that I sound so discouraged preemptively is because so much contemporary fiction is so bad. Just whole, and I don't mean bad in the sense of not to my taste. I mean whole plot lines just forgotten by the author, or huge amounts of emphasis. So as a secondary character, I'm going to chapter 2, I'm going to wander into that character's narrative perspective, stay there for 20 pages, and it's all going to be incredibly elaborately detailed. And yeah, okay, but you're never going to mention that character again, and we're never going to go back into their viewpoint at all. They might come up as a name, but which means that by the time you get to the halfway point of the book and you look back at that chapter 2, you can recognize chapter 2 as a holdover from a previous draft. In other words, a mistake in the current book. I encounter that literally almost every time I read a piece of contemporary fiction now. I'm sure I will encounter some amateur hour crap like that in this, but it might be heartfelt. I might find some things in it. You never know. And then we have, this is another biography, but a lot like the Dickens thing. This isn't going to be I doubt it's going to be a poke under the covers, walk down Main Street type biography. This is by Kevin Hayes, and it's called Undaunted Mind. And it bills itself as an intellectual life of Benjamin Franklin. So I don't know how much we'll get here about his scandals in London or his fast business deals on the American frontier or anything like that. I don't know how much we'll get of anything like that. I think this will be more concentrated on the writings, which is fine by me. I find Benjamin Franklin endlessly fascinating. So you want to write an intellectual biography of him, a biography of him as an inventor, a book about him and the stove, a book about him as a lover or a diplomat, anything you want. You do any splinter thing like that. The 3 books that I've read on young Franklin when he lived in Boston, anything like that you want to do, I'm totally for it. I admit I'm a little more for a whole biography, a great big whole biography, but little things like this, keyhole studies, like whatever an intellectual life of Benjamin Franklin means. I don't know what that means. You're not going to mention his gallstones? I don't know what that means. I'll find out what that means. But books like this, sliver things like this, whether it's about the stove or the lightning or whatnot, always end up having something interesting for me. Maybe not the whole book. We'll see. I'm totally up for it. And then we can finish here with a romance. This is not just a romance, but a Harlequin romance, a category romance. Harlequin romance. There's the whole romance genre, of course. You know that. You know that from Romantasy, but also romance itself has been upholding the book publishing world for 180 years and being scorned for it the whole time. Romance sells better than any other genre. It's read more widely than any other genre, not just Romantasy, but long before that. And it's looked down upon more than any other genre. And if romance is looked down upon by other readers, well, category romances are sometimes looked down upon by romance readers. Category romances are the Mills and Boon and the Harlequin romance. They are these set things. They're very patterned. They're very corseted. Their page count is uniform. Their design is uniform. Their plot structure is uniform. No one's going to deconstruct the romance genre in a category romance. Fortunately, no one's going to do that in any kind of romance. Romance is meant to entertain you. Thank God. I love. Thankfully, the scales fell from my eyes a long time ago, and I now love romance novels, and I love the Harlequin categories. I often think that I should sign up to just get regular deliveries of a batch from Harlequin, and whether it's Harlequin Intrigue, which I really like, or the Harlequin Historicals, which I love. You know what the main thing is that stops me from doing that? Sarah at the Bookish Knitter, who's our category queen on BookTube, is going to be nodding her head vigorously at this point, and she's completely right. You know what the main thing is that stops me from doing that? Harlequin's crappy website is the main thing that stops me from doing that. A silly thing like that. It should be the easiest thing in the world for me to go to Harlequin's website, sign in, and sign up. And yet, every time I go to the website, it's like, who are you? We don't have any of your login information. What? That login information doesn't look right to me. Oh, no, I don't think that's right. Oh, wait, what are you looking for? I don't know if Sarah has the same problem. But the reason why I don't, for instance, I'm sure that Harlequin has a program where I could sign up to get all 4 historical romances every month. I'm sure they have a program like that. And I'm sure that it's a logistical nightmare. So I just don't bother. Instead, I just buy them. This doesn't help Harlequin at all. I'd like to help Harlequin. But this is by Roxy Harper, who I don't know that I've ever read. And this is called The Vikings Royal Temptation. And this, I think, will be a reflection of the fact that the Vikings didn't just kill Irish monks. They traveled all over the world. They encountered a whole bunch of royal courts. They had all sorts of adventures. For all I know, that guy on the cover is Harold Hardrada, who did have a royal temptation once upon a time in his youth. He never looked like that, but then no Viking did. I doubt that it's about Harold Hardrada. Historical characters tend not to appear in Harlequin historical novels. They're more an atmosphere than they are, picking somebody like Cardinal Wolsey, for instance. But this looks very enticing. I think I'm singling it out only because I don't want this May TBR to go on forever. But I think I'm going to read probably half a dozen category romances for May. This is the one that stuck out the most. And there you go. That is what I mean by a kind of May TBR. This is not indicative. It's not comprehensive. May is going to have a lot of new releases and a lot of categories, and I'm going to read all of them. I'm going to read all of them. Because I'm not going to do anything else. I'm going to walk and pamper and burp my little baby. But aside from that, I can't imagine what could be happening to distract me in May. Instead, I'm just going to read all the new releases. So all the science fiction, all the fantasy, all the nature books, not all the political books, but all the history, all the biography. This is a good toe in the water. The main thing that I wanted to stress at the beginning of the video is that this is just a partial TBR, not only because there are a lot more May releases. We could do May TBRs for 4 or 5 videos. But also because I don't know where my whims are going to take me in the month of May, and I'm going to follow them. That's all the fun of it. Not just the whims of what I find at used bookstores, but the whims of what you put in front of me. You never know. I mean, I watch a bunch of BookTube videos. I watch a bunch of channels. I subscribe to a ton of channels. Those are dedicated, passionate readers. Maybe they've just encountered a book. Maybe I've read the book before. That's usually the case. Maybe I've read the book before, but maybe it was years ago. They've just encountered it, and they're going on and on about it. That might prompt me to reread it. unless it's Irving Stone. anyway, that's a May TBR for you, but I'll probably do other TBRs for May, so I'll wrap this up for now. But I'll see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.